Hi class, this is Kendra Crow, your instructor for English 101. And this is your video that I'm going to show you about commas. So I got these comma quick rules from the Purdue OWL website, and this PDF is included in the Brightspace under the comma area of week 11. So be sure to take a look at that. And I'm only going to go through these quick rules here because they will help you to, in most cases, they'll help you. And this will also help you with your grammar quiz that you will have this week, at the end of this week. So I wanted to go through these with you and sort of explain a couple of the ideas. I'm going to go ahead and put this up a little bit bigger. There, I think that'll work better. Okay, so these are the quick rules. Commas are very necessary, and they're necessary for readability and just understanding what it is that you're trying to state in your work, in your writing. So these are the quick rules and just a short guide. And then as you see, if you scroll down, these are the extended rules. So go ahead and browse those as you want to. They just kind of go on and on. There's 8 pages of them here, but I'm not going to focus on those for this presentation. I'm just going to go on the quick rules here. So the first one says, use commas to separate independent clauses when they are joined by any of these 7 coordinating conjunctions: and, but, for, or, nor, so, yet. So here is an example of that. So I like butter, comma, but I also like margarine. Okay, so that is an example of how you would use that comma placement. I also want to point out I did include 2 other videos that I found on YouTube that sort of illustrate some of these ideas, especially this one with these coordinating conjunctions and the subordinating conjunctions. So you want to look at those. Those 2 are really helpful in showing when to use a comma, when not to use a comma. So that's the first one, and that's probably a pretty common one. So use commas after introductory clauses, phrases, or words that come before the main clause. So for instance, here's one: after I do the dishes, comma, so that's my introductory clause, I'm going to vacuum the floor, and that's my independent clause at the end there. So after I do the dishes, I'm going to vacuum the floor. So that's one example of how you would use that after an introductory clause. Use a pair of commas in the middle of the sentence to set off clauses, phrases, and words that are not essential to the meaning of the sentence. Use 1 comma before to indicate the beginning of the pause, and 1 at the end for the end of the pause. So here's an example: Edgar Allan Poe, comma, the father of suspense, comma, was born in Boston, period. So that would be setting off that the father of suspense, so that phrase in the middle. You would set that off with commas before and after. Okay. Do not use commas to set off essential elements of the sentence, such as clauses beginning with that. That's a relative clause. So, for instance, I am a working mother that stays at home. So, because I have that word that in there, that clause, you would not use a comma for that instance. Use commas to separate. Use commas to separate 3 or more words, phrases, or clauses written in a series. So today I took out the garbage, made my bed, and cleaned the bathroom. So those are 3 or more in a series, okay? So you have garbage, made the bed, cleaned the bathroom. So that you would use commas to separate those. This last one before the and is called a Oxford comma. Sometimes you can leave that out. It wouldn't be wrong to leave it out, but it's just a stylistic choice. Use commas to separate 2 or more coordinate adjectives that describe the same noun. So be sure to never add an extra comma between the final adjective and the noun itself, or use commas with non-coordinate adjectives. All that means is this. She was a patient, kind doctor. So the two adjectives are patient and kind, and then you would use a comma in between. You could add an and in there, and you would not need that comma. But since I don't have an and in there, I use the comma. The next one here, use a comma near the end of the sentence to separate contrasted coordinate elements or to indicate a distinct pause or shift. So whenever you have a pause in your sentence, you could probably throw a comma in there and it would be correct. So she was well liked by everyone, she thought. So that would be a pause in there, and so or a shift. So I would put in a comma there. And then use commas to set off phrases at the end of the sentence that refer back to the beginning or the middle. She was known as a novelist, a phrase she didn't like. So just adding a phrase at the end there as a modifier, that would be a way to use the comma. And then geographical names. So, for instance, his address is 123 West Main Street, comma, Anytown, comma, Illinois, period. So, just like you would use on an envelope. And then, or pretty close anyway. And then use a comma to shift between the main discourse and a quotation. So, we definitely use this. She said, comma, don't follow me. And punctuation. So we would definitely use that. So make sure you're using that comma in there when you're using your quotations. And then use commas wherever necessary to prevent possible confusion or misreading. So just read through it. If you're pausing or you find it confusing the way you have it written, either look at revising it or maybe there's a comma missing in there. Those are good quick checks to see for where you might be missing a comma. So I hope this was helpful for you guys to see where how to use commas, and then hopefully this helps, especially with your grammar quiz at the end of this week. Thanks, and let me know if you have any questions.